Hey everybody, guess what? It's Dr. Tomlin, and as always, it's Dr. Ann McCarty with me. Hey, Dr. Ann, what's going on?
Part two for you, Drew.
Ooh, that's correct. As we promised, this is our part two conversation with the wonderful Rick Wormeli. So hey, check it out. Here you go. Yeah. It's interesting. So much of what you're talking about, you said, teaching is coaching, comes down to communication. And communication, and I don't know, see what your perspective is on this. I hate it when people talk about soft and hard skills and create that unnecessary binary, because without communication, without empathy, you don't have the results that people are, so, I don't want to say lustful for, but looking for. You know what I mean? And I think it goes back to your story of being in the classroom and starting your own club for tutoring kids, because you got practice early in the coaching experience with your peers. It almost begs another question. Do we need to start earlier on creating teachers? Do we need to start with having our students become teachers of each other? That way they see themselves more fully in the process? How do we do that? Or maybe that's a whole other show.
No, I would agree with you. There are FTA clubs, Future Teachers of America out there. I think we should start in middle school, very definitely, with kids becoming mentors and tutors. You can peer tutoring programs, so on. But even middle school kids who tutor younger kids, so primary and younger, so different grade levels, not just peers. They really feel it's a sense of responsibility, sense of maturity. I'm contributing in a positive way to the larger world, the community, which are all beautiful and vital. I mean, required constructs.
Right.
In that ages 10 to 15. And both of you know
Absolutely.
that very, very well. I think we do need to do that, but it also means it's a very practical thing. It saves your sanity.
Yeah.
Because I think about this. I want to do descriptive, timely, helpful feedback. I can't. I would be a bottleneck. I have 185 students in my student lab. So in my career, I overtly taught kids in my class what I was being taught and what I had learned about descriptive feedback. So heretofore, it used to be, yeah, it's good. There's nothing wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Which is not feedback. And feedback is about specificity. I point out what you did and describe its outcome, impact, decision, and see if that's where you want to go, what you'd like to revise. But you're getting the data now so I can revise my learning in light of that and go on and improve my learning and maybe be reassessed, and reaccredited down the road. But it's just this constant cycle. So what I do is I teach students how to do high quality, like the kind of stuff you would do in student, conferences, learning conferences with each other, and student-led ones. For that, absolutely doing that. But I also overtly, and there are YouTube videos. If you type in Rick Wormeli and descriptive feedback techniques, part 1 and part 2, there's at least 2, and there's a few more where I train parents and guardians and at home, so you don't over assist mom and dad. Here's how,
or grandpa.
That really is. Don't cheat. Anyway, here's how you do feedback with your kids at home. And some of that stuff really translates across to relationships, other things you want to do. But the idea that I put the tools in their hands, so it's not just me bottlenecking it, creates that agency and that sense I'm an active learner. I'm not a passive learner. And people keep talking about these kids today aren't motivated. Oh, they're intensely motivated. But the environment isn't set up to do it. The brain, naturally, this is going to sound really weird, but we're hardwired since birth to do complex, demanding things, to please others, to be successful. So when a kid in high school and middle school, let alone elementary, says they deflect, this is boring, this is stupid, or they're coming across like lazy, there's no such thing as laziness. There's always something else going on in their lives that's keeping them from full investment. When I remove those barriers, like Ann and I were talking about earlier, I guarantee you, at their heart of hearts, they really want to know that the Battle of Hastings was 1066. They really want to know how to multiply binomials. They really want to, and they feel so proud. And so I have to convince you of your competencies, right? And I don't have the issue of, this is dumb, I'm not going to do the work. No, motivation is incredibly, success is very motivating. And one of the things we find is that a lot of people try to get kids motivated and they find success. No, when you are successful, then you find the motivation. It's reversed.
Yeah.
And so I have to go out of my way to make sure that experience is there, even with adults. It's like Tom Gusky was talking about in his talk about leadership change in schools and cultural shift. There's a psychological reward when I try something out on my students and it works really well and I see the positive outcomes. Now I want to dive deeper into that topic and really get into it. But you're trying to convince me it's all hot and cool and I should do it, and I have no proof of it in my classroom. I don't have the psychological reward enough, and I don't commit to it.
Right.
When I want teachers to do feedback with their kids and all these cool techniques that I often teach, I make sure I do it with them. And they feel the warm, positive support. They're way more likely to do it with their students.
Yeah.
When I want them to differentiate, you better believe I differentiate PD. I don't do one size fits all. Sit for 3 hours for Rick, and you never see the guy again. You know, like, because that undermine your entire message. So when we do PD in a building of differentiation, we better take the needs assessments and do different PD for different people at different levels of readiness, and different levels of needs from their classroom reality.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's rambling, but that's kind of I was walking through that.
No. And it's not rambling. And again, it's like exploring on that bicycle. Like we're gonna ramble, and it's gonna get to the main destination. No, because I think what it also provides when you do that kind of work in PD with adults to show them how it should be implemented or could be implemented in a differentiated, more empathetic way in their classes, is it does also create a culture of what we've often coined here is psychological vulnerability and psychological safety, where adults have to be vulnerable enough to say with other adults, man, I'm struggling with this. Like, you know, if I'm struggling with this, then how am I going to make it work for my kids? You know what I'm saying? For our students. So
you have to model that.
Yes, exactly.
And come out the other side.
Yes. I mean, modeling the language of metacognition and vulnerability is super important.
I want to add the other thing that,
go ahead, Ann.
Rick, that we talk a lot about with the behavior before belief. Like, you can tell me and I'm not going to believe you until I actually try it. And then, like you said, make sure they're successful, because then we can have,
or if they're not,
belief.
Maybe a few more steps in it as we give critique, and then keep going until we're successful.
Yeah, success doesn't have to be a macro, big, giant thing. It could be micro success. Like, how do you microwave success instead of having to wait for the whole oven to heat up? And you see what I'm saying? Sorry, I'm kind of mixing my metaphors now. Go ahead, Ann.
And I was the idea of feedback. It fuels learning, right? If I don't know how to get better, I'm not going to get better. It's going to be feedback that's going to get me there.
That is true.
And we often
get defensive and feel threatened by whatever the other person's asking of you,
and
you'll self-preserve and shut down.
Yep.
And the clarity of the expectations. And I know this is a part of what you talk about, Rick, that the kids have to know where they're aiming and what are the expectations for what they're doing. We have to give them that clarity, because that's what feeds the feedback, the specificity of it. Like, if you tell me if I say, Rick, make me a healthy dinner, and you say, great, we're going to have this, this, and this, and I didn't tell you that I'm allergic to 7 of the things ahead of time, you're never going to be successful with that. So we have to be really specific about what we're doing.
Yeah. And remember, Rick Stiggins talked about that. Kids can hit any target they can see and that stands still for them.
Mm-hmm.
It really fires up personal investment when I know what's expected of me. And when I don't have that, it's nebulous and vague, I drag my feet. So if I know what you're really going for, that Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind, all that. But that being vulnerable stuff, I don't know if you remember, but in 2017, Tom Newkirk wrote that wonderful book called Embarrassment. It's the only book I've ever seen written about embarrassment in the classroom and the faculty lounge, and how it dramatically affects what you say and do as a teacher in a faculty meeting, let alone whether or not kids learn in your class, participate in your class, engage with you, see you as an advocate or an adversary. It's just a whole book, wonderful book called Embarrassment.
Interesting.
And when I work with teachers to say, hey, let's talk about standards and break them down into the evidence for different levels of proficiency. Well, I have to negotiate with other people. We've never talked about this. And I've been teaching this thing is super important. And I had no idea if it was. It just became that in my psyche as a teacher. And I find out I spend 3 weeks on it and you spend 2 days on it.
Yep.
Who's right? Yep. It makes me vulnerable to share that up. I would rather not do that. I'd rather make excuses or say, I'm fine. I don't need any support. and or not believe that you're going to be helpful to me because it would hurt. I'm really struck. Robert Evans in 1996, The Social Side of a Human Reform or Education Reform, is a wonderful book. He got me thinking about this with teachers are so used to being competent. Principals too are used to being competent. I know answers. I know what I'm doing. And when I ask you to do something that you don't have that wheelhouse of information, it makes me feel like a newbie again. And I already did my dues. It's too much energy in a time that's all in a stressful time where I already have a lot of anxiety about the world and about teaching, and I'm stressed out. I don't want to put myself in that position. So I wrote an article a while ago on the grief of accepting new ideas, where I explore this a lot more. And that you go through, even Kubler-Ross, 5 stages of grief, but you go through this idea of, do I really want to become an anxious new person at this? Or do I want to continue and give the world, curate the image that I know what I'm doing? Because I feel like if I say, I don't know how to do this thing you're asking of me, I'm saying, I'm completely competent and you should fire me, which is a lot of people are just really insecure right now. They don't want to do that. But it actually is what a professional does. But ego that allows us to get through the next day and stand in front of a classroom or in front of a faculty and say stuff and hope that they find it valuable. It can be so stubborn and hold on to things because it wants to protect you.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Max Planck's, the German physicist, his idea that all science advances one funeral at a time. And so every year of my career, and I still do this. So starting in 1980, so it's been a long time. Every year I make a promise to unlearn one thing that I just accepted as truth in teaching and learning. Earlier in my career, it was get rid of the oral dictation spelling test, because that's a test of memorizing 20 words a week, not a test of spelling by any means. So then I completely changed my test to reflect what true spellers can do, at the different grade level. So every year, one of them was zeros on the 100-point scale. I'll keep them zeros and not make them into 50s. So every grade range has the same equal influence when you look at the volatility of the average and things like that. So every year there was something where I had to unlearn something, and I never regretted it. But it also kept me on my toes. Are you doing that just because it was told to you, or just because everyone else does it, or because it has a pedagogical effectiveness? Let me do that deeper dive. And I've gotten rid of all kinds of stuff in my career, and I've opened myself to other stuff because I have this sense of my identity is based on what I get rid of. That with which I've grown complacent. So my idea is to imperil complacency on a daily basis. And we all of us, we negotiate with what level of hypocrisy we will tolerate this day. And some days we have the strength, the fortitude to fight hypocrisy and do the right thing. And other days we just give into it, and that's normal. But in general, can we lean towards the side of, hey, don't let it go unscrutinized, and have the courage to do something different if you discover something different? I feel like Maya Angelou. Do the best you can for a while until you know better. And then when you know better, do better.
Yeah, that's true.
I love that as a 2026 resolution for all of our listeners.
That's true. That's true. Pick
the thing that you're going to unlearn.
Yeah. What will you unlearn this year? And tell me about it. Do you know there are whole books and by famous people and articles? I used to think, but now I think.
We use that a lot.
It's such a classic phrase. I use it with students all the time. I use it with PD. But there are books where people have written whole essays just on that.
Yeah.
It's valuable.
It's valuable. And I think what you've unlocked for us, and it is such this is beyond, students and working on that work. It's how we unlock our own identities. And how an identity can become an edifice and an artifice. It's like as you were talking, I was thinking about, like, as a school administrator, sometimes I feel like I need to put on a mask of assuredness so I don't have the imposter syndrome feeling. But then sometimes that mask of confidence can become an edifice and I need to take it off and feel okay about taking it off. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I have to.
You need to call it what it is and admit, and we have to openly share this in faculty meetings. I feel like an imposter. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. And it really is a barrier to a lot of people and a lot of good stuff in education. And just say, I feel out of my depth on this thing you ask of me. So here's what I need from you to help me be better in this thing. And admit that is huge. But a lot of people avoid taking that mask off, as you say. So I more good on you, as others
Well,
might say.
but like it goes back to like you said about even enjoying articles, right? And topics. Like you don't mind if a topic is repeated, but it's about the freshness of perspective, or what did you unlearn to get to this point? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you've baked a molasses cookie, but what makes it different from the other molasses cookies that I've had in my life?
Which gives a model, an example for others to try that in their lives.
Exactly. Goodness gracious. So, wow. I mean, we've got questions, but I feel like we could just.
Okay.
So, like, what other like differentiation is something
I don't
that you're
promise to
you're
have wisdom, Drew.
No, listen.
We'll
The
keep going,
unknowing, the not knowing that you don't know is wisdom in itself. So I think you've taught us that already. There's an unstoppable fountain of wisdom then by not knowing. What other innovation, educational innovation, is either raising one eyebrow or raising both eyebrows currently in when you go around the world?
If I had 3 or 4 eyebrows, it'd be easier. It's almost easier to say what's not raising my eyebrow.
Okay, all right,
And you don't have to do a deeper dive in any of these if you don't want to.
go for it.
One is accountability. That so many teachers keep saying, and principals and school board members and so on, we have to teach accountability. We have to teach accountability. And they think accountability is punitive grading. And explore, how do you hold another human accountable for learning? And none of it would say, give them zeros and Fs when they screw up and make sure they're unrecoverable. That's not accountability. So one, we can do a deeper dive in what is accountability. That's raising my eyebrow a lot, and people aren't realizing they're falling into that trap. 2, falling into the gaslighting around diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and not pushing back, rising up to your better angels, and this idea that I find so many schools doing in districts, preemptive compliance. We're going to be charged with this, so we're going to censor ourselves ahead of time so we don't have to put up with somebody clamping down on us or community uproar.
Yeah.
Here in Virginia, of course, we had for a while, and other states do have this, that, the parent hotline. Well, my son's teacher was teaching blah, 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 so, and then the governor will intercede and come into the classroom. So we say, we're not going to do that. So many times in so many different states, before I'm allowed to come talk, I'm given, and it's recorded, and they say, we will lose our grant money, we will lose our state funding if you say any of the following words. And I said, you do know what I'm talking about, right? You hired me to come in and talk about like differentiated instruction, but I'm not allowed to say equity, diversity, differentiated instruction, differentiation, anything like those lines.
Wow.
Like, why am I coming again? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the enabling, the negative and horrific enabling of cruelty in the DEIA stuff is raising multiple eyebrows.
Yeah.
As they're going through that. And then a third one, and there are more, but I'll stop because, you don't want to go on forever, is I'm really, really hot and intentional about modern pedagogical understanding, how the mind learns. So cognitive psychology, cognitive science principles, and all of that. And that when I ask teachers, what is it you know about the study of the mind for this age group that is informing your instruction? I get a what?
Right.
And so they don't have that strong background. But then they do the AI stuff. And generative AI and LLMs, I do a whole presentation. I write a lot about this, so we can talk down the road if you want. But on what do we know, what is true learning? What do we know about the physiological, endocrinal nature of learning for middle school kids, for example, or high school kids, or elementary? And how is that such a ripe time that we don't want to outsource the cognitive load to somebody else doing the heavy lifting of learning? And how do you walk that dynamic? Here are the wonderful, exciting things we can do with generative AI. Woohoo! Yeah. But here are the things you do that ruin it. And you can't be creative with what you don't have. And you can't, understand all those different things. So where's that balance? And exploring all of that stuff, the ethics of using all of that in terms of pedagogical instructional ethics. Am I really doing a disservice? And there's all kinds of studies we can talk about it. But I think that is a huge issue. And what I've been very excited to see is one, getting rid of the cell phones in the classroom, but more and more teachers are now going back and getting rid of the Chromebooks, at least for a large part of the lessons, if not a lot. What I have found in North America and the few places internationally where I've had a chance to work in just the last 2 years or so, 3 years, so I'm only looking at that window, is just a massive epidemic of teachers who can't think with agility or versatility about content or their instructional design because they're taking pre-done lessons handed to them. So it might be a scripted program, not AI or anything. Or they're going to AI and say, I need 4 weeks worth of lessons on X, Y, and Z.
Let's talk about that, Rick.
Yeah, they don't, but and they get there and they're stuck when they face the classroom reality. And they don't have a dexterity and they can't take advantage of teachable moments. And it's killing me because their first thought is to blame the kids, the system, or I have too many kids, when they never develop their intellectual selves, their creative soul. I've written about that too. How do you develop your teacher or educator educational intellect? And in fact, I was the chairman of the committee in Fairfax County Schools on this for a while. And that is lacking. And it raises my eyebrows. You know, you're getting all these teachers coming in and you're blaming them for not being effective, but you've never helped them cultivate that side of them. I'll be quiet. Go.
So, all right. So, okay. So I'm going to give me a second. All right. So Rick, to kind of round us out today, we've talked about a lot of things, but I want to say, let's talk a little bit about lesson planning and AI and helping teachers get to the root of what makes them educators, which is their thinking and metacognition and helping students think outside of the devices. So give us your kind of stance on that, and then where do educators start? Because we know the first thing that we'll do is go to AI and create this for me. But that's
I will tell you.
Talk to us about that, Rick.
I've worked with a lot of books. Like I write blurbs in the back or forwards and things. So I've worked with a lot of authors on the writing side of that for university level and for secondary, so middle and high school. So new books that have come out. Mark Warner is one. I highly recommend his work and some others. And one of the adages that we've learned from that over and over again, and it's become even more critical, is kids always write the first drafts. You don't draft it out and say, well, it's still critical thinking because they get a draft and they can just tweak it for their own style. It's the same thing with teachers. You design the unit. There's a couple of people that I do respect out there have put out essays, in fact, the last month or two, on, hey, teachers aren't supposed to be curriculum designers, sort of thing. And I think that's inaccurate. In order for me to have scope and sequence to see how this lesson fits in the larger context, I need to be able to design a sequence of instruction, the instructional experience over time. But I need to have been able to play with the content ideas. These 3 fit together under this umbrella. This one goes first, then this one. Oh, wait a minute. I could do this one now, but it's a skill in isolation. Here it's a more meaningful context. I need to be able to juxtapose and play those ideas off others. So I'm talking about my craft, also talking about my content within my craft. I need to be able to do that. What I would use, the first thought about AI is, why don't you use it to augment those things that you need to spark your ideas? So, for example, I want to write about just the transition in the Age of Enlightenment. I just from Middle Ages to Renaissance and the role of the church in that. So I'm going to write about that. I do my first draft or I do my lessons around that. And then I might read an article where there was commentary from 5 different people. And this is AI helping me find that commentary, where people talked about what it really meant for the world of thinking to move from Middle Ages to the Renaissance, whatever. And then I see ideas and I go, oh, I like that. I'm now going to take that idea and I'm going to put it in the context of some of this stuff, citing the source. Of course, putting the context there because I think that would enrich what I've already created. So I love the idea of supporting things. Mm-hmm. Like when I write an education article to this day, which I feel like are just nonfiction essays, and every single piece of writing is an act of persuasion. I'm trying to persuade you this is worth your time and energy and interest, and this idea has validity. So I'm always trying to persuade you. So I'm going to say, all right, I'm writing about this. Oh, wait, I wonder if there's ever been any research on this. Well, I'm going to go to Eric. I'm going to go to lots of other online places and see if there's commentary where people come up, and then I'm going to look at there's citations underneath and go, oh, that's a place. I'm going to go look at that study. And so, yes, AI filled it and made it much richer. But I was the one that designs a lesson unit first. And I'm the one that goes, hey, what are 5 different ways I could teach sublimation? I wonder if I could use household items from home so they can try to show their parents at home, because I want to make there's a transfer, and when you teach somebody else, you can do it. What can I possibly do? And I brainstorm. I don't go ask AI to do that, because I'm not doing the heavy lifting, and it's not on my mental fingertips when I work with kids or with teachers, whoever it is. And I think that a lot of people, they just want to get the task done, but they're not steeped in or called to the learning. Mm-hmm. And the new role of the teacher is to make learning valuable, not the task doable. And if you chase just the task getting done, then it's way more likely people are going to use AI to shove it in, and they're not going to learn or benefit from it at all. But then that gets back to, can I get teachers and principals and superintendents to feel comfortable in their busy worlds, to find value and meaning and calling in the creative endeavor? Mm-hmm. And I think we've kind of lost that. So to me, that's meaning making, which is connections, not just sense making or efficiency, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That kind of be where I'd first start with teachers.
Yeah. No, listen, you have, there's so many things that I'm thinking about right now, because you've used the pronoun I quite a bit. Like, teachers sometimes feel, I think, the pressure to develop it themselves. Like, I need to create this. Well, yeah, I need to do that. Yeah. But I'm thinking, like, and this is a question also that goes into scheduling as well. So do teachers feel the pressure to develop things on their own because of scheduling not affording them the time in the day to collaborate with others? And then is AI then becoming the surrogate collaborator, turning the I into a we? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's it's the artificial teammate that they should have time in the day to have face-to-face collaboration with. Does that make sense?
It does. And I don't want to presume to sit here in judgment saying, hey, lay off the AI and you're
no. To
survive the day.
Yeah.
But know full well what is in state of atrophy every time you do that, because creativity atrophies. When you teach the same thing for 3 or 4 years straight, your creative self atrophies after a while. Mm-hmm. One of the things we do with the intellectual life of teachers, at least the committee that I was on for a while, we went to the Smithsonian, and Smithsonian has a resident associate program. And we would say this: could you give us 90% off the cost of your museum classes? We'll pay the other 10%, because we're trying to do it just for our teachers. And we want the teachers to go take classes in things that are totally unrelated to their curriculum, because we want them to develop their creative selves. We found grant money for teachers to take music lessons. So you've always wanted to pick up the cello and you've never touched it before. We will give you 20 cello lessons. We'll pay for them if you'll go do that, but you can't do anything there. Go learn Minecraft from a kid. I don't care. But get really good at world building, whatever it is. Hey, here's how you start your own YouTube channel, and you put really creative stuff. We'll support you in that. Go do that stuff, that wonderful stuff, because you'll be a better person. One, empathetic for first-time learners, but two, much more critical thinking, making connections back in the classroom if you do that. There is value to that. So just for its own sake, do creative things.
Yes.
Because you're a better person, you're a better thinker in the classroom. It does have transfer, really clear transfer. But on the other hand, if I say, look, I need like 3 articles on the 4th grade level for my 6th grade class on this content, I might go augment my lesson with supportive services like that, because I'm short of time. That's cool. That's viable. It doesn't diminish your instructional effectiveness or student learning experience. But the teacher that is not creative and doesn't develop that creative muscle, is really fragile and in danger. And what's really worrisome and troubling, they won't recognize it. They will blame the stresses of life or the curriculum was dumb, or these kids, look at the parents they come from, the family, it'll deflect. And they won't see themselves as empowered to actually respond in a constructive manner. So anyway, I agree with you, but I never want to sit on judgment and say, knock it off with AI. Just use AI and know full well how it's affecting you as a thinker too.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what you reminded us as we're kind of closing things up is that, there are, of course, logistical and pragmatic things that we all have to attend to make to survive the day, as you said. But we also have to tend to the creative and the passion and just the energy that needs to be palpable. And those are key ingredients in the recipe of pedagogy as well. So, gosh, my golly, Rick, thank you for bringing your keen insights to all of us here on the Fearless Schools podcast. I mean, this has just been amazing. I feel like we've taken everything that you bring and we've mashed it into this, hour-long program. Oh my gosh. You put like 10 pounds of awesome in a 5-pound sack. Woo!
Man, Drew, I want to take you everywhere. You are such the encourager. Man, I feel buoyed just being in your presence, man. You too, Ann.
If I had hair to blow back, it would have been gone, Rick. Our audience threw their pennies in the well of educational progress, wishing for a podcast dream come true. And by golly, they got that because of you and then some. So listen.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Fearless Schools podcast listeners, you did it, right? You took time out of your listening lives to check out another Fearless Schools podcast brought to you by Creative Leadership Solutions. And you got to be proud of yourself, right? So pat yourself on the back, go to www.creativeleadership.net and then subscribe to this and share this podcast with anyone and everyone you know, peers, pals, confidants, musical prodigies, local town criers, whoever and whenever. Dr. Drew Tomlin, host of your Fearless Schools podcast, wishing you well and saying, stay fearless on the bright road forward. Thanks again, Rick. Thanks again, Dr. Ann. All right, we all good? Okay, I'm going to hit stop. Don't shut anything